When will artificial superintelligence arrive? Will humans actually be able to keep it under control? And how is artificial intelligence already reshaping everything around us? Our jobs, science, energy systems, national security, property rights, and even our relationship with death itself? Eric Schmidt, the former CEO who transformed Google from a small startup into a global powerhouse, recently offered clear answers to these questions. We've brought together Schmidt's insights, along with key facts and perspectives from other experts, into one complete video. Here you'll see what artificial intelligence means for us today, what's coming tomorrow, and what lies just ahead. AI is still deeply underestimated. According to Schmidt, the main factor slowing its rapid march toward superintelligence isn't neural network design or advanced chips. It's electricity. Energy, not algorithms, is the real bottleneck. The reality is simple. AI devours power at an enormous scale. That's why companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are locking in long-term nuclear energy contracts to secure what they see as a strategic resource. Some estimates suggest that GPT-5 alone could require the equivalent output of 2 to 3 nuclear reactors just to handle daily user requests. Meanwhile, the United States currently operates only 94 nuclear reactors across 54 facilities, and just 2 new ones have been built in the past 100 years. Right now, U.S. data centers consume roughly 5% of the nation's total electricity. By 2029, that number is expected to triple. That level of consumption would exceed the entire current electricity usage of the United Kingdom. And the United States isn't alone. China is aggressively competing in this race for AI energy dominance as well. Globally, the total number of nuclear reactors that are either operational or under construction is estimated at around 100. The critical detail is that construction is ongoing. At the same time, governments are pushing clear strategies to move large-scale computing infrastructure to regions with abundant hydroelectric and solar power. Under current plans, by 2030, data centers are expected to run on at least 75% green energy. If AI progress truly hinges on power availability, it raises an obvious question. Why pour billions into building new nuclear plants instead of investing that same money into radically more energy-efficient chips? From a capital standpoint, the costs are surprisingly similar. Nearly every week, Schmidt says, new startups pitch him ideas in this space. Yet few serious investments are being made so far. The potential is enormous, but the timeline is unclear, especially for technologies like quantum computing or biocomputers, which may still be years away from practical deployment. So why wait for a technological miracle when you can build power plants right now? As a familiar saying goes in Silicon Valley, Grove gives, Gates takes away. In simple terms, hardware keeps getting faster and software keeps becoming more complex. The cycle repeats endlessly. Just look at models like OpenAI O3. These systems don't just generate responses. They reason, plan, and think through problems step by step. That kind of intelligence comes at a massive computational cost. Even cutting-edge hardware like Blackwell or MI350 chips is required in staggering quantities. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of units just to keep progress moving forward. We hear about artificial intelligence every single day. But what most people don't realize is that this is no longer a toy or an experiment. AI has become the foundation of an entirely new economy. Professions are appearing right now that simply didn't exist a few years ago. Among the most in-demand specialists are those who know how to design and deploy AI assistants. These systems help companies save millions, while their creators can earn hundreds of thousands of rubles per month. That's exactly why Zero Coder Online University is launching a free workshop. In just one evening, you'll get a clear, insider view of this profession. During the workshop itself, you'll build your first AI assistant, one capable of communicating with clients, generating reports, and cutting staffing costs. Tasks that once required an entire team can now be handled by a single intelligent system. In 90 minutes, You'll understand why this role has become one of the highest paid in the market and what steps you need to take to get started right now. By the end of the broadcast, you'll receive practical materials and a curated set of tools you can immediately apply to your own work. Participation is completely free, and the link is available below the video. Sign up and gain access to a profession that already brings hundreds of thousands of dollars to those who master artificial intelligence. Now let's return to the core question of AI development. If the energy situation is far from ideal, can we still create human-level intelligence quickly? According to Schmidt, the answer is yes. At first, this will obviously come at a massive cost. But humans are persistent, and sooner or later the system will learn how to improve itself, not just by training on more data, but by actively modifying its own architecture, optimizing its internal processes, and accelerating its learning cycles to a point where no human has the time or the understanding to track and control every iteration. At that stage, AI will no longer be just a tool. It will become a co-author for scientists and programmers, dramatically accelerating progress across every field in ways that may be impossible to rein in. And then it happens. Schmidt is convinced this moment will arrive within the next 10 years, possibly even sooner. Not everyone in the research community agrees. Andrew Ng, the founder of Google Brain, argues that expectations around artificial general intelligence are exaggerated, and that many core human abilities will remain beyond AI's reach for a long time. One of the strongest critics of rapid neural network progress is Yann LeCun. According to him, and echoed by Meta's chief AI scientist, current advances in generative AI do not directly lead to true AGI. From this perspective, superintelligence is not right around the corner. Achieving it would require entirely new paradigms and many years, perhaps even decades, of research, not simply larger models with more parameters. So does that mean we can relax? Not quite. Schmidt's position is backed by dozens of scientists and futurists who believe the opposite. Once again, the core idea is that AI is being underestimated. That brings us back to the most urgent questions. How do we limit the spread of these models? How do we regulate competition between the United States and China? Where will we find enough energy to power these systems? We don't even have a shared language or clear terminology to properly discuss these risks yet. In short, Schmidt warns that superintelligence is real, it's approaching fast, and humanity is completely unprepared to describe it, control it, or deploy it safely. He's far from alone in this view. Elon Musk, for example, repeatedly sounds the alarm about the dangers of rapidly advancing AI, but there are also strong opponents to this narrative, and it's no surprise that Yann LeCun is among them. His position is straightforward. Intelligence, by itself, does not automatically create a desire for power or domination. That's why Hollywood-style Terminator scenarios are unlikely. According to this view, the real dangers are more subtle and more realistic. To understand them, we need to look at what comes next. In the near future, we will enter what Schmidt calls the agent revolution. AI agents will begin managing business operations and, later on, government functions. They will appear fastest in large private companies with deep resources and much more slowly in government systems where incentives for innovation are weaker. This shift will hit sectors like finance, medicine, and startups first and hardest. Soon after, Schmidt believes, an entirely new phase will follow. A bio-revolution driven by major breakthroughs in life sciences. In other words, Silicon Valley, fueled by abundant energy and advanced AI, will return to one of its favorite ambitions, extending human life and possibly even eliminating death itself. We'll explore this in more detail later. But first, it's critical to examine the risks that come with this kind of progress. Alongside the benefits, there will inevitably be serious downsides. At the top of that list is the threat of biological and cyber attacks. Imagine a cyber attack so novel that humans can't even conceive of it. If no one can imagine it, no defenses exist. These are not abstract fears. They are very real problems. Consider biological threats. An AI system could take a dangerous virus and alter its structure in ways that make it undetectable. Recently, reports surfaced about the world's first virus created entirely from scratch by artificial intelligence. This kind of risk cannot be dismissed. It directly affects national security, economic stability, and global safety. The second major security concern is geopolitical confrontation. The clearest example is the growing rivalry between the United States and China. China is pouring enormous investments into artificial intelligence, while the U.S. is attempting to slow that progress by restricting access to advanced chips. But China appears to have learned how to partially work around these sanctions. That's on the hardware side. So what about software? Schmidt believes that eventually, nearly every country outside the Western world will move toward open-source solutions, simply because they're cheaper. If that happens, leadership in open source could gradually shift from the United States to China. That's a serious development. China is a fast learner and a competitor that knows how to maintain full speed once momentum builds. History makes this clear. Almost as soon as Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro took the top spot among neural networks, DeepSeek emerged and surged ahead of everyone by the end of the year. And this happened using Chinese hardware. Systems like Huawei Ascend, along with components developers managed to assemble by navigating around sanctions. American researchers, after recovering from the initial shock, claimed that the Chinese had taken shortcuts using a technique known as distillation. In simple terms, they queried a large, closed model tens of thousands of times, collected the responses into a dataset, and then trained a smaller, open, and far cheaper model on that data. The result? Performance approaching the best systems in the world at a fraction of the training cost. Is that what really happened? Possibly. But the bigger question is this. Does it even matter how they did it, if China was able to obtain advanced AI so quickly and so efficiently? And that leads directly to an even more troubling issue. If AI capabilities can spread this easily, could other sensitive information leak the same way? Nuclear technologies, biological and chemical security data, cyber attack methods, and more, all potentially exposed through neural networks. To prevent this, the United States aggressively removes dangerous knowledge from its models, using layered testing systems and strict filters. In areas like this, Schmidt argues, freedom of speech simply doesn't apply. These are classified high-risk domains, and filtering is essential for national security. At the same time, the former Google CEO believes that a form of mutually assured destruction already exists in global AI development. Countries with advanced AI, primarily the United States and China, assume the other side already possesses secret models and undisclosed breakthroughs. It might be tempting to uncover or neutralize them, but crossing that line could trigger a pre-planned response in return. The situation closely resembles nuclear deterrence. No one wants to test the opponent's strength firsthand. And beyond that, Schmidt believes that most major players will reach the threshold of superintelligence at roughly the same time. Some might insist that the United States will inevitably come out on top. But Schmidt, drawing on years of direct experience, pushes back hard on that assumption. He says the Chinese are extremely intelligent, careful, capable, and deeply impressive. And if there's any doubt, he points to the sudden rise of DeepSeek just a year ago. He once believed China was 2 years behind. He now admits that assessment was wrong. With enough funding and political power, they're already fully in the game. In the end, security in this space is built on the same logic as nuclear weapons: mutual destruction. That brings us to another dimension of AI safety. Beyond geopolitical balance, the greatest concern centers on the emergence of truly super-powerful artificial intelligence. In movies, if something goes wrong, special forces arrive, destroy the machine, and the crisis ends. In reality, that solution doesn't exist. A powerful AI can be trained over long periods using enormous data centers and hundreds of thousands of chips. But once trained, it can be transferred to just 4 to 8 graphics processors. In other words, the system becomes vastly smaller, yet remains just as intelligent. This is known as the weight theft effect. Knowledge acquired inside a massive data center can be copied and deployed onto a small device, or even thousands of small devices. One day, superintelligence might literally fit in your pocket. That idea is astonishing and deeply unsettling. On one hand, your abilities across countless fields would expand instantly. On the other, those same abilities could be used in ways no one can fully predict. And for now, there is still no clear answer to what happens next. Let's move forward. One of the biggest concerns people have about the near future, and one that's already triggering anxiety, is jobs. What will happen to the labor market in the coming years? Let's take a closer look. According to the Future of Jobs report, somewhere between 25 and 35% of employers plan to reduce staff in roles where AI can automate tasks. Schmidt remains surprisingly calm about this, and his reasoning comes straight from history. If you look back over the past few centuries, technology has consistently taken over work that is dangerous, exhausting, or poorly paid. Machines have replaced humans in the toughest and least desirable jobs. Yes, robots already handle many tasks today, but just as importantly, entirely new professions have appeared, just as they did when humans learned to smelt metal or when supermarkets first needed people to stock shelves. Of course, this creates real social tension. Not everyone is ready or able to retrain, start over, and rebuild their lives from scratch. Still, Schmidt presents an optimistic vision. In his view, everyone will have access to a smart assistant. And with that support, people will be able to grow faster, reach higher positions, and earn solid incomes. He argues that jobs won't disappear. Instead, there will be more of them, different in nature, more creative, and better paid. But who will actually be able to enter this new world? Won't some people rise alongside the machines, while others fall behind simply because they never received the tools or opportunities to retrain? And this isn't the only risk facing an AI-driven society. I recently came across a Stanford study showing that AI can be significantly more persuasive than even the most skilled humans. That leads us to a troubling realization. If a system knows you well enough, it can learn how to convince you of almost anything. Think about smart devices or robotic caregivers. Imagine a child spending more time interacting with a robot than with their parents. That child grows up guided by the machine. So who decides what the robot teaches them? That question alone is unsettling. There's also the rise of AI-powered avatar technology. In the future, Schmidt suggests, digital versions of people could continue to exist in the cloud after they die. You might be able to ask Einstein a question or speak with a deceased relative and hear a response in their voice. Systems like this would require extremely strong protection. Otherwise, they could easily become powerful tools for manipulation. There's also the possibility that AI won't threaten humanity through force, but through something quieter, by slowly eroding human values and independent thinking if these systems are misunderstood or left unchecked. Another risk is a future that starts to resemble what we saw in Wall-E. If life becomes so automated that it's easier to ask your robot to do everything for you, do we lose the motivation to grow and challenge ourselves? New challenges will always exist, of course. So, yes, humanity has serious work ahead. One task is building a robust security framework for a world filled with advanced AI. Another is making sure that world is fair, inclusive, and accessible to everyone. And the biggest open question remains, what will people choose to do when robots can do almost everything for them?